So, after about a year of posting on YouTube, I finally have a setup that is going to be here for a while. As you can see back there, we got the shelf. Looks nice. What do you think, though? Looks good? You like it? Don't like it? Whatever. Now, as if you're wondering as to why it's always changing, well, there's a simple explanation. That's because welcome back to another video. Today, we are going to be talking about a show that has progressively gotten worse over time, and that is Umbrella Academy 2019, made by Netflix, based on these amazing graphic novels by Gerard Way. In summary, it's about a dysfunctional family with superpowers trying to stop the apocalypse. And that's every season. When I mean that's every season, I mean that's every fucking season. Okay. But you know what? That's fine. That's why we're here. We're here to ask the age-old question, which is the Umbrella Academy finale really that bad? And the answer is yes. I remember watching season 1 when it came out, and I was in love with the show. I wanted more of this. And so I started reading the novels. And that's kind of when I realized how much better the graphic novels are in comparison to the show. Now, with that being said, there's a lot of things in the show that works better. Like the cast. The cast, for example, is really great for this show. They also developed characters that in the comics didn't really have any development, like Cha-Cha and Hazel. But in order to really understand what makes this finale so bad, we're gonna have to start at the beginning, and that's with Season 1 of Umbrella Academy is a watered-down version of what Gerard Way did in the comics. In summary, it follows this dysfunctional family, the Hargreaves, after their dad dies, and they have to try to stop the end of the world, and it works for the most part. I won't lie, I think the show did a good job at adapting what they could in the way they could. It's clear that this show did not have an infinite budget, which is also why a lot of things were watered down. For example, in the comics, the Seance, aka Klaus, he's always floating. It's just kind of part of his power set, and we don't actually get that till season 4. And when we do get it, we get it for maybe like a scene or two. But here, he doesn't do that, and some of the powers changed. But like I said, the show excelled in its cast. It has some really great choreography. I think that's really where the show is at its strongest, is when it does these fight scenes, because they get really creative and really fun with them. And once you start throwing in the powers in there, it gets even better. And for the most part, the story's pretty faithful to the first book, Apocalypse Suite. But then, that's where things start to change. So here's where things take a little bit of a turn. This season is based on the second book, Dallas. They gotta stop the apocalypse, except it's the late 1960s. Kennedy's involved. It's a whole thing. The show went and did its own thing this season. It diverged slightly from the material, and I don't want to say it's better than the book. As a show, it's a lot better than season 2. I think it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more creative. You can tell they really wanted to lean into more of the weirder aspects of the books, and that's what I really appreciate about this. They established more things from the books, like the Kraken Diego's powers, or the fishbowl guy in a suit, whose name I don't remember, and I don't really feel like looking it up. And in this season, they're also in a different timeline. It's a whole thing, because their original timeline got destroyed because the apocalypse did end up happening. Whatever. They also introduced Lila, who's a really great character. It's different from the books. Most of the season does its own thing. It's not really until the end of the season where it kind of goes back to what the book does. It recreates certain things from the book 101, surprisingly, which is weird because you would think, why don't you just do that like earlier? I don't know, man. I don't know what the writers were on. But look, it's good. It's really good. I liked it. Still, nonetheless, it's different. And this is where things start to diverge even more. So season 3 just kind of comes around and fucks everything up. It just ruins everything. It's kind of based on the third book, Hotel Oblivion, except in the show it's not called Hotel Oblivion, it's called Hotel Obsidian for some reason. And they also introduced the Sparrow Academy, which is based off like a one-off thing from the book. Also, they bring back Ben from the Sparrow. Okay, let me clarify. This is the third timeline they're in. The first one's gone. Now the second one's gone. Now they're back in the present in a third timeline. And now this is a different one. And Ben Hargreaves is back because he died. He's been dead, but he's in this timeline's version, and he's an asshole. At this point, they just don't know what to do with the characters or their powers. They've done the same thing for the third time. dysfunctional family. They all come back at the end, stop the apocalypse, go to another timeline. This season also gets messy. There is a very controversial thing they do with one of their female characters in the show. They kind of just forget about it by next season, which I don't like, and that's not fun. That's not really good when you're talking about such sensitive material. And like I said, the characters are just fucking around. Lila's a whole lot more fun. She gets more screen time this time around. She's more involved with the main family. But guess what? It's another end of the world story again. And then what happens at the end? They destroy that timeline and go to another one for the third time, man. And that brings us to now. So how did season 4 do? Well, it's even worse. Every season is the fucking same. It's always the end of the world, man. It just kind of pisses me off. Not everything in the show is bad. 90% of this season is about third timeline Ben. You're right, not first timeline Ben, not second timeline Ben, because second timeline Ben is not born yet because it takes place in the 60s, and first timeline Ben died when he was a kid, and so now we're on third timeline Ben, who's now in the fourth timeline. And this time around, Ben is the MacGuffin starting the apocalypse with this character named Jennifer, who had a half-assed introduction, and supposedly she's like the strongest of them, whatever, right? It doesn't really matter. Again, and they become a giant monster and kill everyone. And with all that being said, you know what? Maybe the last hour of the show was actually kind of decent, good. Basically, they explain that after season 1, since they changed the timeline, they actually changed every single timeline, and because of that, they are destined to start the apocalypse and destroy the apocalypse in every timeline. It's a relatively good justification as to why every season has followed the same formula, the same potion. And I was at a point where I was like, you know what? I'll accept it. At this point, I don't care. Just stop, right? And I guess they did kind of put some thought into it. Now, I don't know if that was their plan from the very beginning, or if that's a plan that they just now came up with. But just like season 3, this time around, the writers also kind of forgot everybody's powers, what they are, how to use them. And they also did something with Lila and Five that should have never been done. Literally added nothing to the story. It only gave Lila more screen time. There was better ways to use her character. Book 4 isn't out yet, and Gerard Way is still working on it, and that's fine, right? Because I guess the show caught up, so they had to go and do their own thing. The whole point of the show, yeah, it's about a fucked up family, but it's also about the world that the Umbrella Academy is. That's really what made this show work for me, is that this was a pretty fun, wacky, silly, goofy time travel world. Rather than explore this oddball of a universe, quite literally forgot about its own universe. They forgot about its original timeline. They kind of forgot, yes, they do time travel, but it gets to a point where it's so confusing and so frustrating to watch that it ultimately adds nothing to the story. Like, there are certain passages of time that make no sense, because you will see like a 7-year time skip and then the actors and characters look exactly the same, but obviously in between seasons they look different because they grew up in real life, and so things like that just really don't help the show. And that's why this finale was so bad. At the end of the season, they basically kill themselves, restarting everything and create a single timeline, and we get a nice scene at the end where these characters from past seasons show up and they're just in a park and they're having a great time, and obviously the main characters are dead or whatever, but it ultimately means nothing, because yeah, I recognized some of the characters. I was a fan of the show, but I didn't recognize everybody, and they made it seem like everybody who showed up was of some kind of importance, and they probably were in past seasons, but I just don't remember. And that kind of shows you that not only did the characters and show forget about these characters, but by default that kind of causes us as viewers to forget about them as well. And it's pretty sad because the credits are really nice. You see a couple minutes of just BTS photos of the cast and crew, and it made me feel kind of sad, because I started with this show really got me hooked at the very beginning, and I wanted more for it. I wanted something better for it, and it's kind of sad to see the way it's fallen. I mean, at the end, I'm glad that the cast and crew had a great time with the show, but it's really sad that it lost its spark. It lost what made the show so good, and it forgot what it was. And as a byproduct, it almost feels like it forgets about you as an audience. It forgets about what the audience wants, what the audience cares about, and it feels so disconnected from reality and us. All in all, that was Umbrella Academy. I wish the show was better. For someone who's been here since the beginning, I'm really sad by the way the show ended. Honestly, I don't think this ever should have been a live action show. I think Umbrella Academy works far better as an animated show. So Gerard Way, if you're listening to me and you own the rights, or you can obtain the rights back to the show, please let's make an animated show. We can, you know what? We can even get the actors. They can voice the characters. It can be great. We can even add Lila. Why not? This needs to be animated with like Studio Trigger or something. I mean, they just did a Transformers special and it looks beautiful. They gotta make an animated Umbrella Academy show that is a lot more faithful to the comics. I'd say maybe watch the first 2 seasons, and then after that, you can stop. Even if season 2 ends off with a cliffhanger, trust me, season 3 is not good. You don't need it in your life. And as per usual, thank you, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch me talk about people in some really cool uniforms that they don't ever use. It just looks sick. Whatever. Until next time, see you, Space Cowboys. I kind of want to end this off on a good note, so I will say I miss Pogo. I think Elliot Page's transformation as a character and actor is quite phenomenal and very beautiful, and season 2 was great. Okay, bye-bye.